Tori Dunlap, welcome to the Creator Path Summit. It is so exciting to have you here. I'm doing my very best not to fangirl. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm assuming you can hear me and see me and everything's good. It's always the moment of truth when you hop on one of these to make sure your tech's good. So hopefully you can see me. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I can hear you and see you perfectly. Thank you so much for being here. I remember stumbling upon your content for the first time, maybe in 2021, and have just followed your journey and your creator arc over the last 4 years. So really special to have you with us here today. I know you have some great things prepped. We can jump right in, and then we can have some time at the end of your session for some Q&A.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. Team, we're jumping right in because we got a half hour of content and 15 minutes of Q&A after, and I have a lot to get through today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides and make sure everybody can see me and see the slides. This is the other scary moment. Okay. Everybody see me, see the slides. It's going to be a little clunky, but that's okay. I want to make sure I can still see the chat at the same time. We got the slides. Good to go. Okay, amazing. If you don't know who I am already, my name is Tori. I am a New York Times bestselling author. I am the host of the #1 money podcast for women in the world called Financial Feminist. I have taught over 5 million women how to be better with money, including how to save money, pay off debt, start investing, start businesses, and feel financially confident. I'm also a multimillionaire, but my favorite thing is building a sustainable business. And I don't get to talk about it as much as I like to. And so this is the exciting opportunity where I'm going to put personal finance expert hat on for part of it, but I'm going to put business owner hat on for most of it. So I'm really excited to be able to pour into you today and teach you a lot of really good information. Here's what we're going to cover in our time today. We're going to just discover the necessary money mindsets you need to scale your business. That's the first thing. We're going to chat about how to build long-term wealth and financial freedom beyond just these one-off brand deals or content monetization, basically how to scale your business to make it sustainable. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to confidently price your offers and charge what you're worth. Okay, we're diving right in. The first piece of money mindset that I need you to understand, you need to know your numbers. It's a non-negotiable thing. I work with a lot of right brain creative entrepreneurs, and they'll come to me and they'll be like, I do the creativity, right? I don't do the number part. I don't do the left brain stuff. I'm here to tell you, you're getting harsh, Tori, right off the bat, but I'm here to tell you it is your responsibility as a business owner to know your numbers. I majored in theater, everybody. That shocks a lot of people. I am a multimillionaire. I'm a financial expert. I do 7 figures plus in my business every year. I majored in organizational communication and theater in college. Okay. So if anybody is right-brained, it's your girl. But in order to actually make your business sustainable, you need to have a deep involvement with your numbers. Even if you have a CFO, even if you have someone who is helping you manage the day-to-day, you need to still be understanding, what am I bringing in, right? Where is the money coming in from what revenue sources? And then where is it going out? What are my expenses? You also need to understand and have the responsibility of knowing what to do when you get paid. So for some entrepreneurs, this might be redundant, but I know we have a ton of people in the audience who are brand new entrepreneurs or who are side hustlers trying to be full-time entrepreneurs. So let's talk about what happens when you do get paid. This is where I put my personal finance expert hat on. The first thing is that you need to understand what your ramen noodle number is. This is what I call your base amount of money that you need to be making, right? As if you were eating ramen noodles every single night, okay? So if you do not already know what that ramen noodle number is, this is the bare amount of money you need in order to live. Things like your rent, your groceries, your insurance, right? Things that are absolutely necessary to your life. This is homework piece number 1, is you need to know your ramen noodle number beyond any other number. You need to know the bare minimum amount your business needs to be making in order to cover yourself, okay? So that's step 1. When we get paid, yay, amazing, we got income. We're going to immediately send 30% to taxes. Yes, it's that high. We don't want, as we're literally talking on tax day, for you to be hit with a tax bill every single year that you did not financially prepare for. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see new entrepreneurs make. I remember the first time I started making money in my side hustle. I was making good money. And then I remember having the conversation with my accountant that 30 to 40% of it was going to go to taxes. That is a harsh reality for the first time. So this money needs to just sit there waiting for tax day. So it should be in what's called a high yield savings account. This is just like an everyday savings account, except it's going to earn you free money. That's great. You want your money to work as hard as you do. Fantastic. My recommendation, there's the link for it. So we set aside 30% to taxes immediately. Then we need to handle our expenses. These are our business expenses, okay? So if you're paying somebody, if you're paying for Circle, right? If there are other business expenses that you have, we all have them. That's the second thing, is you need to make sure to pay your business expenses and keep those lean as you can, especially in the beginning. Next, we're paying ourselves. Maybe it's your ramen noodle number to start. This is the bare amount of money you need, right? But then we're hoping to work up to what I call your sushi number. This is where you get to have a little bit more life in your lifestyle, okay? You get to go out to eat, you get to see your friends, you get to travel a little bit more, okay? So the goal is to pay ourselves our sushi number. Then, especially right now, business is very volatile. The economy is very volatile. A lot of shit is going down. It seems like every day something's changing between tariffs and talks of a recession and stock market downturns. You need to save for business reserves. So I would say 10%-ish. If you're just getting started, maybe it's just a couple percentage points. Maybe that's all you can do, but you need to have some money in reserves in, again, a high yield savings account. This is here to protect the longevity of your business. Okay. This is here for you to make sure that you have money to weather any storm financially that your business encounters. And finally, if you have leftover money after that, we are going to invest it. I want you to make sure that you have something to show for your money. So many people, so many business owners, influencers, creators, they start making good money, maybe for the first time in their lives. Maybe they're starting to make their yearly corporate salary in a month. I remember, again, the first time that happened to me. Oh my goodness. It's so easy to then feel like I get to spend all this money. I get to go take crazy vacations. However, I need you to have something to show for it. The thing that breaks my heart is people building businesses and making good money and working really hard, and then not actually building their net worth, not actually having anything to concretely show for all of that hard work. So please invest with any remaining money you have. Tax advantaged accounts are a great place to put this money. This means that the government is incentivizing you to save by offering you tax breaks. That's fantastic. This is the best way to legally pay less in taxes. So we're looking at things like IRAs. These are individual retirement accounts. SEP IRAs. These are self-employed retirement accounts, or solo 401ks. My favorite hack that I did not know for a very long time is that if you are a side hustler, you can contribute your business earnings to a SEP IRA or a solo 401k. That's another piece of homework for you, is maybe you have your 401k through work. This is what I did. I had my 401k through work. I had my Roth IRA that I opened personally, and I also contributed to a SEP IRA through my business. This is our money flow. This is the way the money's working. I'm going to take a quick water break and check at the chat. Everything looking all right? Does this make sense to everybody before we move on? We're always on a delay, which is fun. We get to sit here and just be like, yay, hopefully everything's good. Okay. Alexis is giving me the yay. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's talk about how to price yourself. Please don't undercut yourself. When you're first getting started, especially, it is so easy to go, oh my God, somebody's going to actually pay me money for this? And think, okay, well, I'll just price it based on what my expenses are. The biggest mindset shift I can give you around pricing. You are a one-person marketing agency. If you are a creator, you are a one-person marketing agency. You are handling strategy, you're handling content creation, you're handling posting, you're handling analytics, you're handling the back and forth and the communication with brands. So it's not only the labor and the expertise, it's also the fact that you have influence too. If they were just hiring a freelancer, right? That's a huge cost for them to hire somebody to create content. But you also have an incredible amount of influence. There's a reason they're coming to you and to the audience that you have built. Okay. So when we're thinking about pricing ourselves, we're not just thinking about how many followers we have. We're not just thinking about what our email newsletter open rate is. We're thinking about the amount of work it takes to produce what the brand's asking you to produce. In addition, before you price yourself, we were just talking about your expenses and taxes, right? If you charge $1,000 for a project, 30% is going to taxes like that. So now you're at $700, okay? Because you have to pay your own taxes. Then, let's say you have $200 of expenses. You just cut your profit in half. This is a business, right? This is what happens when you run a business. You have expenses, you have taxes, but you'd be shocked at the amount of entrepreneurs who don't consider this before they slap a price tag on something. So before you go out and price yourself, before you even go out and pitch a brand or work with an organization, you need to understand that you are a one-person marketing agency. You're doing it all. And you have influence on top of that. And you're going to have to pay your expenses and your taxes. So please consider that before putting a price tag on something, okay? My second point about pricing. If it's an immediate yes from a brand, you didn't charge enough. If the brand is like, yes, absolutely, sounds great, you just undercut yourself. Learn from that. If you don't have brands pushing back on your price, you're not charging enough. Plain and simple. If you don't have brands who are going, can we maybe do this instead because we really want to work with you, you're not charging enough. So for every immediate yes you're getting, learn from that. Oh, I charged $5,000 for that newsletter sponsorship and every brand saying yes. Justin just talked about this, right? If every brand's saying yes, that means you are charging too little. You should be sometimes out of budget. You should be able to negotiate, right? So please know before you price yourself, learn from previous mistakes. If it was an immediate yes from a brand or organization, your price is too low. I wouldn't be personal finance expert Tori if I didn't say that, again, a lot of entrepreneurs come to entrepreneurship because maybe they're creative or they have this mission-based business, and I love that. However, this is part 2 of knowing your numbers, that it's not enough to just know your business's numbers. If you are stressed about your own personal finances, if you're stressed about your lack of savings or your increasing debt or your lack of a retirement nest egg, that has serious emotional and financial impacts on the health of your business. You should not be asking your business to solve all of your financial problems. So when we're talking about taking our personal finances seriously, let me walk you through what I call my financial game plan. This is in chapter 3 of my book. This is what to do in what order, because we have to make sure our financial house is in order, right? Our personal finances are good before we can even think about scaling our business financially for the long term. So the financial game plan. This is the number one question I get asked about money. What do I do? What is the priority here? Okay. The first priority is 3 months of an emergency fund in a high yield savings account. And yes, take a shot every time I say high yield savings account today. You're going to be drunk on the floor. But these are powerful, powerful tools because, again, your money's earning free money. Why do we save the emergency fund first before we do anything else? Couple reasons. One, I don't want you going into debt trying to pay for an emergency. Emergencies are expensive, okay? Second reason, I really prioritize mental health at her first 100K. I really prioritize making sure that you have enough money to sleep in bed at night knowing you're covered tomorrow. If shit hits the fan tomorrow, you're good. You've got enough money saved. You're going to be okay for a period of time. And finally, and I'm especially looking at women, people of color, LGBTQ folks, disabled people, people of marginalized groups who are watching right now. Number 3, you need an F-off fund. You need enough money to be able to get yourself out of an unsafe situation. Maybe that's an unsafe marriage or relationship. Maybe that's an unsafe apartment. Maybe that's a toxic job. I need you to have enough money to leave. Money means options. Money means choices. Money means that you have the ability to exercise your self-worth. I'm going to say that again. Money allows you the ability to exercise your self-worth. So we need to have enough money in savings where we can make the choices for our own health, for our own sanity, for our own safety. So first, an emergency fund, okay? I say 3 months bare minimum. Again, with all of the economic volatility right now, beefing that up is not a bad idea. If you still have a 9-to-5 job, number 2 is to get that 401k match if you have it, because that is free money. Gosh, I miss the 401k matches. It's one of the only things I miss about corporate is someone else giving me free money. Oh, chef's kiss. Incredible. Okay. After that employer match, if you have it, the third priority is to pay down your credit card debt. And you're going to start with the debt that has the highest interest rate. The easiest way to do that is to start paying down the principal. That's the original amount of money you put on the credit card. So if you put $1,000 on a credit card, didn't pay it off, we're going to start paying that down first. Then we're investing for retirement, 401ks, IRAs, SEP IRAs, etc. With number 4, in conjunction with that, we're then going to start paying off our debt that has under 7% interest. Why 7%? Well, 7% is the average you can make in the stock market. 7 to 8% is the average return year over year. Sometimes it's way more, sometimes it's way less. So if we're making more money in the stock market than it costs us by being in debt, we're going to actually prioritize investing first. But if our debt is higher, that's credit card debt always, and some other kinds of debt. If the debt is costing us more, AKA it's more than 7% in interest, we're going to work to pay that off first because, again, that's more costly. And then finally, we're working towards saving for what I call the big life stuff, okay? This is buying a house. This is getting married. This is retiring early. The final thing to make all of this come into play, if you've been tuning me out, I need you to come back because this right here is the best financial tip I can give you. And you can see it on the bottom left corner of your slides. Automate your money. So you can automate your savings toward each one of these financial game plan things on the list, okay? Like you would for your electric bill or your rent. So set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account. So from your checking account into your HYSA that is there for your emergency fund. Maybe that happens every time you get paid. Maybe that happens once a month. Maybe it's $200 to start, right? Maybe it's 10% of what you know your business is going to bring in, okay? But this is what's called pay yourself first. This is one of the most important things that you can do for your financial life, both for your personal finances and your business's finances, okay? This is your financial game plan. Want to make sure everything's looking good. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. All right, let's keep moving, team. So I would love for you to share in the chat. What is your next step in the financial game plan? Maybe you haven't saved that emergency fund yet. No shame. Maybe you're building that right now. Great. Sounds amazing. We need to make sure that's in a high yield savings account. We need to make sure we have that automatic transfer set up. Maybe you're paying off your credit card debt. Maybe you're in the investing stage where you're like, oh, I'm looking to max out my 401k, max out my IRA. Amazing. Let us know in the chat so we can encourage you and cheer you on. Alexis, saving per life category. Amazing. Love to see that. Leslie says, amen to F off money. Absolutely. All right, building emergency funds, securing full-time employment. Yeah, super important. Automation, amazing. Knowing your numbers, perfect, Jill. Love this. Okay. My final money mindset hack. This is controversial when you look at it, but stay with me. I know that business is very serious, right? I know that this is a super serious thing. At this point, we have 17 team members at her first 100K. I take this shit really seriously. I have to make sure that our business is bringing in enough revenue to sustain not only me, but the people who I give jobs and benefits to and 401k matches and all of that. So when I say think of your business like it's a game, what I mean by this is taking the serious stuff seriously and making everything else actually really playful. So let me give you an example of this. If I get to the end of a calendar month, so, on April 25th, I start having conversations with myself, but also with core members of my team. And if I am $20,000 away from a big milestone, I'm then going to ask, what kind of levers can I pull in order to get to that milestone, right? So for this For you, it might be, okay, I am $5,000 away from 30K. What lever can I pull with 5 days left in order to gamify closing this number? If I post this, what happens? If I post this on LinkedIn or this other thing on Instagram, what happens? If I send this specific email to this specific audience, what happens? If I do a one-day flash sale, what happens? This is literally, we had our annual team retreat last month, and I have a completely remote team. So we fly everybody out here in Seattle, and we were very close to one of our best months for our program. It was actually going to be the best sales month of this program called Stock Market School that we have. And we were about $10,000 away. And so I literally went to my email manager and I was like, hey, can we put out a flash sale that's good for 24 hours? Use this discount code. And we turned it around in about an hour. And guess what? We hit our goal in about 45 minutes. So if you want to scale your business, if you want to make it sustainable, you actually want to start thinking about, what are the ways that I can make this fun? What are the ways that this can feel like a game to me? This is where we start using money as a tool to get us where we want to be, rather than seeing money as the enemy. And for any women watching especially, it is okay to make money. I've done so much research for my book and my podcast about how we as women feel this unique shame for pursuing money. We feel bad for making more money. As long as you're doing it in an ethical way, right? You're not exploiting anybody. You're doing the best you can. Making money is not a bad thing. I want you to make a lot of money, because money means choices and options, and nothing bad happens when women have more money. Okay? So think of your business as a game. Think of the levers you can pull. Think of the optimization that you can do. Okay? Let's move on. The biggest mistake I see creators make: reliance on others for revenue as opposed to making your own opportunities. When we're thinking about actually scaling your business, scaling as a creator, scaling as an online entrepreneur, we need to be building on our own land. So when I talk about others in this example, I'm talking about both other brands relying on opportunities to come to you, right? Relying on people to sponsor that newsletter or sponsor that Instagram post or work with you in some regard, right? But also others in terms of the platforms you're on. You need to build beyond Meta. You need to build beyond LinkedIn. You need to build beyond platforms in order to scale and in order to create a sustainable business. Let me give you an example. This was a TikTok I posted in 2021. I spent about 10 minutes shooting this TikTok. I'm in a sweatshirt on the couch, okay? The hook on this TikTok is I say, I will have over 10 million or 6 million. I will have over $6 million by the time I'm set to retire, and I'm only 26, okay? Something that I didn't even know how smart this was, is I had spent the previous 2 months with my team building a really powerful lead gen tool, a quiz. You've all seen these quizzes. Maybe you've taken mine. You can take this quiz. In exchange for your email, you get a free personalized money plan. You get to discover your money personality. So I spent about a week of sprint work with my team building this quiz, writing the copy for it, writing a very short email funnel sequence for when they got their results, okay? And when I posted this TikTok, I told people, hey, go take this money personality quiz linked in my bio. You can see that this post went viral. Just on this first post, because we reposted it later, right? It got reposted on BuzzFeed and other big accounts. We got 6 million views, a ton of shares, a ton of saves. So virality is cool. Systems are better. What happened was that from this one TikTok, in 1 week, we got 100,000 email subscribers. This is an organic TikTok. I didn't pay any money. I didn't have a fun lighting setup. It's literally me on my iPhone with no makeup in a sweatshirt on the couch. And we managed to drive over 100,000 email subscribers. And the graph below is our website traffic during that period of time, okay? So when I'm talking about building a sustainable business, what I'm talking about is not just building on land you own. Let me give you another example on Instagram. Jay's going to talk about this more too, my friend Jay Klaus, tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. He'll talk a whole bit about how to build an email list, okay? But when we're talking about using Instagram, for example, ManyChat is your friend, an incredible tool that allows you to actually have it go down in the DMs. So they're not even going to your website. They're not even going and taking another step. You're asking them to comment a trigger word and they're interacting with you in the DMs. In exchange for that, not only do we make a ton of money, we get their email. So even with just this is an example post that we did on Instagram. We just did one this past weekend. We got 18,000 comments. It's increasing our engagement. It's increasing our revenue. So we're thinking, again, beyond just using these platforms to go viral, but the financial impact of building a sustainable business. We started doing this ManyChat thing on Instagram 2 years ago. We got over 1.5 million more followers. We have an additional 350,000 email subscribers from doing this and an additional $4 million in revenue. This is the power of using these platforms as top funnel lead gen and then engaging with a community to get them to go one step further, whether that's through quizzes, digital downloads, or just conversations in the DMs in order for them to get their tool. My final point for you. One of the biggest things we track at Her First 100K is internal versus external revenue. How I define this is internal revenue is the stuff that we create, right? The stuff that we own, that we have control over. External revenue is all of the stuff that comes to us. So let me give you an example. Internal revenue looks like digital downloads. It looks like courses or coaching. It looks like one-off workshops. This can also be merch. It can be physical products, or it can be events and summits. These are just examples. Externals. This is external ways to make revenue. Brand deals, doing affiliate marketing, running ads on your podcast, speaking, consulting, etc. Most creators, most online entrepreneurs, especially who are dependent on social media, they only have external revenue. They are not thinking about building on their own land. They are not thinking about how can I, one, build an email list, but beyond that, actually create products and programs that are in my control. Let's say the brand that you're working with that brings in the majority of your revenue, let's say that their marketing budget disappears, or let's say they have to cut their marketing budget, right? That's a really, really unsustainable way to run a business. We never want to be reliant on stuff we don't have 100% control over. Now, we make a ton of money on affiliates. We make a ton of money on brand deals, but that is only about 60% of our revenue. And instead, we have built over years to make sure that we have as equitable a split as we can between internal and external revenue. This is how we build a financially sustainable business, because you need to control the things you can control. You need to start building on the land that you own, as opposed to having so much reliance on these outside platforms. So whether that is the algorithms from Instagram or TikTok, right? You can't control that. Or it is working with companies that you don't have any control over their marketing budgets or their performance. Please make sure you have this in the back of your mind as you're scaling. So my question for you, I would love for you to share in the chat, what is one additional revenue stream that you can create? And I'm especially looking at those internal revenue streams, okay? The programs, the courses, the digital downloads, the merchandise, right? The things that you can create, that you can host, that are going to make sure that you can build a business that is less reliant on outside forces, that is less reliant on one company or a handful of companies' marketing budgets. All right, more coaching and group programs. Love this. Anything else to share? Again, I'm going to go back to inspire you, right? Maybe it's those physical products, right? It's a little bit of a headache when it comes to shipping and handling, right? But maybe that's something that makes sense for your business. Live events. I love the live events too, Jules, because it's like a one-time only thing. It feels sexy, exciting. It's a huge income surplus, okay? Workshops, digital downloads, Circle, of course. That's why we're here. Cool. Amazing, team. All right. That is the end of my formal presentation. I would love to take your questions. And I think Alexa's going to come back.
Yes. Hello. You killed it. That was incredible. I was over here nodding a lot. There was a lot of love in the chat. Thank you so much for
Amazing.
taking us to school, Tori. That was wonderful. We've got 1,000 people with us live, which is so cool. Let's get through some rapid fire questions. How does that sound, Tori?
Sounds great.
Amazing. Okay, so let's spotlight this question. Tori, if someone was laid off and started a business to generate some income while networking and looking for stable employment, is it okay for the money flow percentages that you shared to be lower at the start until you get more stable? Someone else commented that this actually just recently happened to them. So any advice you can give there?
Yeah, this does feel like I'm asking for a friend, but it's me. First of all, if you were laid off, I'm really sorry. That just sucks. And if you're going through any, like, what could I have done? Like, is this my fault? It's not your fault. Like, and maybe you just need to hear that. It's not your fault. Layoffs happen. And I think they're going to happen a lot more. And so my first thing is, again, putting my personal finance hat back on, any way you can diversify your income right now is super important. So again, that high yield savings account is an additional source of income. Like, people don't talk about it like it is, but like, you get taxed on that money because it's technically an additional source of income and you're not making, you're not doing any more labor or work. So diversifying your income, starting a side hustle, opening that high yield savings account is really important. When we're talking about those money flow percentages I was talking about of like, okay, when you get paid, what's going into taxes, what's getting in reserves? Yeah, they're going to ebb and flow. This is the ideal percentage. I would say that I'm not an accountant, talk to your accountant, but I would say the 30% is probably the thing that you can't really compromise on because Uncle Sam's going to come either way. So the things that are more flexible are, if you're just running a business really, really lean right now, maybe you're not living that sushi life, you're still in ramen noodle life. That's great, right? Or if you're the person who's trying to figure out how to take your side hustle full time, right? And you want to do that sooner, maybe you're willing to go ramen noodle for a while because you just want to get out of corporate. You just want to quit your job. I think the reserves one is the easy one to cut right now because you're just like, I'm just trying to generate income. I'm just trying to make enough money. The reserves is the ideal. So if you can't do that right now, it's a good goal to work up to.
I love this chat because someone in the chat actually said we talk a lot about making money, but we don't talk a lot about how to manage it. So yep. I love that you've gone deep on this. Next question around health insurance. Where does health insurance and expenses surrounding that come into the financial game plan for entrepreneurs? No one ever talks about this.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I took my business full time in 2019, and I remember that was the big fear of like, how am I going to afford health insurance? How am I going to do this? Yeah, I mean, health insurance is a necessary expense and it is a tax write-off. So that is part of your general business expenses, right? The financial game plan that I mentioned, that is more for your personal finances of making sure you have the emergency fund and all of that. The eventual thing, and this is part of the reserves that we were talking about for the business, we hope that we're building an emergency fund for the business to be able to cover things that are expenses outside of our normal expenses, whether it's you had a very expensive month or just something came up or you hired somebody for the first time, right? But when we're talking about health insurance and business expenses, almost all of those are write-offs, right? So get a good accountant. I have never done my own taxes. And again, I'm very financially smart. It's not because I can't, it's because I am willing to pay somebody else who's an expert to make sure that I don't get audited and also make sure that I am getting the tax deductions that are possible for me. So this is a great time, the person who asked this question, to get a good accountant, make sure that someone is worth the investment. They're probably going to pay for themselves and then some to make sure that you are able to write off your health insurance, any other expenses.
Love this. Next question, rapid fire. My business partner wants to put all of his share from the business back into the business. Where does this correlate with your money flow framework? Because I think this is sometimes a common thought process of like, anything I make, I need to invest back into the business versus paying yourself. So I have an idea of how you feel about this, but would love to hear you go a little bit deeper.
I mean, yeah, it depends on the business. For me, I purposefully did not take my business full time until it could sustain myself. I know this is not what this question is. I'll get to it in a second, but I do believe there's two kinds of entrepreneurs. There's the leap and the net will appear entrepreneur, and then there's the backup parachute with a backup and a backup and a backup. And that was me. I am camp 2. And if you want a less financially stressful one more time. If you want a less financially stressful path to entrepreneurship, you will take path 2. Because I didn't want my business to have to sustain me before it was ready. I didn't want to put undue pressure on a growing company and a growing business to sustain my lifestyle, because that would have made me a bitter entrepreneur. It would have made me have to choose short-term decisions over long-term growth. When it was still a side hustle, I killed my best-selling product. I was doing one-on-one money coaching with people. That wasn't sustainable long-term, but that was where the majority of the money was coming from. So if I was reliant on that money in order to, live my life, I would not probably have the business I have now, because I couldn't make those decisions. They would have just been out of scarcity or out of just, trying to get through the today. So if you can do everything to protect your financial house before you decide entrepreneurship's, my full-time game plan. When we're talking about this particular question, I mean, again, it depends on the kind of business you run. It depends on how much money you're making. I mean, plenty of businesses, especially like brick and mortar, right, are not going to earn a lot of money in order for you to sustain yourself. I think most businesses are lucky if they're profitable by year 3 or year 5. I don't know, Alexis, I would love your take on this too.
Well, actually, there's another person that asked this same question, and let me pull this up, Spotlight, around being in the red. So can you talk about how long to expect to start making profit after starting a business? I'm 6 months in and I'm still in the red. I'm curious if I'm doing something wrong, or is this a common experience for most new businesses? I think it, to your point, Tori, depends on the type of business. If you are building an online business, I would really hope that your overhead is low.
Absolutely.
And if you are in the red running an online business, I would look at where I can cut expenses and lean out, maybe even do things manually for a period of time so that you can get yourself in the green and get out of the red. But I know, like, for real estate business, it really depends on the type of business. But for you and your experience, how long did it take you to become profitable? And were you immediately profitable? And what did you do to keep some of those expenses low and keep your overhead low?
Yeah, I mean, again, I echo what you just said. It depends on the company. It depends on the business. I don't like giving specific markers of by this month, because again, your business is going to be different. And then usually benchmarks just make people feel like shit. Like, it's not actually helpful. It's just like, oh shit, I'm behind. So yeah. Here's the thing is, I was profitable immediately because I started doing like social media consulting. I was working as a social media manager in my 9-to-5, and the business that later became her first 100K years down the line was just me doing what I'm doing in my 9-to-5, but as a freelancer. I had, like the cost of my domain. I had the cost of like my email subscription, and that was kind of it. And like, maybe I'd go out to coffee for networking once in a while. I kept my expenses super lean. The thing I'm really proud that I did though, is that the moment I could hire somebody, I did. And I'm not talking full time. I'm just talking 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week, because I needed to get out of answering support emails. I needed to be able to use my time more wisely so I could actually focus on that growth and that sustainability long-term of the business. I needed to get out of making like blog graphics, right? So the question I ask for somebody who is still in the red is, are you thinking strategically about who is the only person that can do the tasks that are at hand? If that answer is you, great. If the answer is not you, bring somebody else in and start having them handle those tasks, because that's how you're actually going to scale. And again, don't bring somebody in full time where you're paying benefits and you're doing all that. That's too crazy right now. Just bring somebody in for like 5-10 hours a week. And we're kind of off track here, but one of the smartest things I think I did, especially as a younger entrepreneur, was I was hiring people a couple years behind me. So I was like 24, 25. I was hiring people who were like 20, sometimes still in college or just out of college. And then I joke, I Frankensteined them how I wanted them. So they didn't have a lot of experience, but they were really hardworking. They had an eye for like marketing, especially because I couldn't afford somebody who was going to charge me $50, $80, $100 an hour, but I could invest my time into training somebody how I wanted them to work in the company. And so that's something that I really, really recommend, especially if you're trying to keep costs low and you have time over money. To Margaret's point about, this decision to outsource to 1099 versus hiring a team, we have a mix of both now. We have some employees that we pay W-2, the benefits, the family leave, all of that. And then we have some contractors. I think especially in the early days, both legally, financially, it's just easier to hire contractors. It's easier to hire 1099s. They also have more freedom in how they work. There's going to be more flexibility there for you. As soon as you get into W-2, you have to think about where they're located and incorporating businesses. And then again, businesses should be providing benefits. And if you're not able to do that at this point, probably not sustainable. And I'll answer Tim's question really quick because we're talking about hiring. We're just talking about, do you hire those people remotely? Yes, my entire team is remote. I don't personally like the Fiverrs or the Upworks. I think those are just for one-off projects maybe, but if I'm looking for somebody who is in the weeds with me 20 hours a week to do marketing, I want to actually hire that person in terms of talking with them, not just going to a third-party site. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it is just through word of mouth. I talk to other entrepreneur friends that I admire and I go, who are you working with or who do you recommend? And actually a good chunk of my team now has come from one other TikTok entrepreneur who blew up at the same time I did. Hi, Jess, if you're listening, who now works with me. And probably 3 members of our team used to be on her team as well. So you just find people you trust and you grow your network that way. And you go, hey, do you know anybody who does really good social media copy? Cool. Put me in touch with them.
I love this. Thank you so much, Tori. This has been such a fantastic workshop. And you are the only one at the summit that is talking about this because 1, you're a subject matter expert. And 2, we wanted to have someone at this summit have these conversations because we want to teach the importance of building something with your eyes wide open and almost not over romanticizing being an entrepreneur. Yes, it's beautiful. And these are everything in your session. This is the tactical real life things from a financial perspective so that you can have longevity and sustainability and not honestly over index on the romance and the beauty and the freedom and not taking care of your finances. I have one more question for you. And I think it's perfectly suited for ending today's session is from Christian. And I'm going to bring on John as you're answering. Okay. So this question, how do you get women comfortable being engaged with their financial future and overcoming fear?
Yeah. I am going to, Christian, if you would allow me, interpret this as maybe you're a man who's married to a woman and you're trying to get your wife involved or trying to get your business partner involved. Oh, Alexis, you're muted. Hold on. No, I can't hear you. Weird. You're not muted anymore, but I can't hear you. One more time. Now I got you.
Okay. Their profile photo is they're present as a woman. So
yeah, present as a woman. Excuse me, Christian. Yes. I'm sorry. Okay. So amazing. Thank you. Sorry for misgendering you. Okay. So when we're talking about just anybody getting comfortable with money, you have to understand that money is a tool. That's the first thing, is that money has no inherent value. It's morally neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. What you do with it is where the morality comes in. And it is a tool to build the life and the business and the community and the system that you want to see, right? So that's the first thing, is understanding that money is not out to get you. And if money is in control of you, you need to be in control of your money. Second thing to understand is that when we're thinking about pursuing money, getting comfortable with money, so many people do what's called the ostrich effect. And I've done this a lot in research for my book, is people bury their head in the sand. They act like their financial problems don't exist and they expect their money to just work itself out. And so many business owners do this too, especially early, because you're scared that maybe you're not making enough money and you're not making enough revenue. And so you just ignore it and you expect it to figure itself out. And that's one of the most damaging things you can do. You and money need to be in a relationship. You need to be having family conferences. You need to be looking at your money on a at least weekly basis, both for your personal finances and your business's finances. So one of the easiest ways to overcome fear wrap yourself in a down comforter cocoon, get yourself like a glass bottle of wine, and like look at your money. We call this a money day to her first 100K, but a designated time to look at your money so that you have time for financial self-care. You have time to really engage with your money in a way that isn't like last minute or done in transition from meeting to meeting. So that's my practice that I love for actually getting entrepreneurs and people generally more engaged with their personal finances.
Super tactical. I need to have a money date myself. Thank you for this. Thank you for the work that you do and the education that you provide to women and just entrepreneurs in general. You are such a shining light in this industry. So thank you so much for being part of the Creator Path Summit. And for those of you that joined us live, drop in the chat your favorite takeaway from Tori's session so she can read it and feel all the love and all the good vibes from today's live audience. Thank you, Tori.
Thank you for having me. Break a leg, John.